Ibrahim Traore walked into the studio with a calm smile on his face. The bright lights glowed overhead and the walls were lined with cameras and microphones. He held a slim folder in his hand, the edges of some papers peeking out. Simple shirt and a neat jacket, clothes chosen to show respect for the occasion. As he stepped toward the table, he nodded to the floor crew, who gave him quiet waves of encouragement. The host rose from her chair to greet him. She was a familiar face on television, known for her clear voice and warm manner. She welcomed Ibrahim, saying it was an honor to have him on the show. Ibrahim returned her words with gentle thanks. The studio audience applauded softly, their claps echoing in the spacious room. Ibrahim took his seat across from the host. Next to the host sat Marcus Flint, a journalist known for his cutting questions and sharp tongue. He leaned back in his chair, arms folded, watching Ibrahim carefully. His face showed a hint of a sneer, as though he expected Ibrahim would trip up under pressure. Marcus had built his reputation on tough interviews, and he seemed to relish the challenge of confronting someone new and untested. The host began by asking Ibrahim about his work in community development. She spoke kindly, giving Ibrahim a chance. To explain his projects, Ibrahim opened his folder and held up a sheet of paper with bullet points he had prepared. His voice was steady as he described his clean water initiative, which brought safe drinking water to remote villages. He spoke of the smiles on children's faces when they first tasted fresh water. He shared how his team had walked for days through rocky paths to reach families in need. The host nodded, clearly impressed by his dedication, just as Ibrahim finished. One point Marcus Flint cut in. His tone was sharp and loud, slicing through the calm atmosphere. "That sounds very idealistic," he said, raising his eyebrows. "But do you really think you can make a difference? You're just one man with a few helpers and no real power? Isn't this just a publicity stunt?" Ibrahim paused. The camera shifted to catch his reaction. He placed his folder gently on the table and folded his hands. He looked straight at Marcus, but did not scowl or show anger. Instead, he gave a small, respectful nod, as if saying, "I hear you." Behind him, the crew exchanged glances, sensing that tension was about to rise. Marcus leaned forward, voice dripping with sarcasm. "Tell me, Mr. Traore, when was the last time you even heard from the people you claim to help? Do they really? Thank you. Or are you just using them to make yourself look good on TV?" Ibrahim took a slow breath. He remembered why he agreed to come on the show. He wanted to bring real stories of hope to a wider audience. He remembered the faces of families waiting by dry wells. He remembered how a single drop of water could change a child's day. He let those memories fill him with calm strength. He spoke with a clear, gentle voice. "I visit the villages every month," he said. His words were simple, but firm. "Talk to the families. I hear their stories. They tell me what they need. I work with local leaders to plan new wells and pipes." He paused for a moment, letting the information sink in. "This is not about me. It is about them. I am just a helper." The host gave him a warm smile. The audience leaned forward in their seats. Even the floor manager stopped making notes and looked up. Marcus flushed slightly, as if caught off guard by the calm truth in Ibrahim's reply. Marcus tried another angle. He crossed his arms again and raised his voice slightly. "You say you work with local leaders, but what if they are corrupt? What if some of the money disappears before the wells are built? How can anyone know your project is honest?" Ibrahim nodded as he listened. He took a moment to choose his words. Then he spoke of the systems he put in place to ensure each donation went where it belonged. He described signed receipts, yearly audits by outside agencies, and the names of volunteers who checked every step. He explained that he published full reports online for anyone to read. He watched Marcus's eyes narrow. The journalist seemed ready to pounce again. But Ibrahim did not let himself be rattled. He kept his tone steady. He spoke of the volunteers who gave their time freely, of the engineers who tested every well, and of the families who filled out surveys to confirm the water quality. A hush fell over the studio as Ibrahim listed names, dates, and facts. The host nodded respectfully. The camera zoomed in on Marcus, who stared without speaking. For a moment, no one moved. Then the host asked a simple question. "How did you learn these auditing methods, Ibrahim?" Ibrahim smiled. He said he had studied non-profit management in college and learned best practices from experienced mentors. He talked about trips to similar projects in other countries where he saw both success and failure. He said he brought back lessons from each place to improve his own work. As he spoke, the studio lights seemed to brighten. Ibrahim's words had a quiet confidence. They were not loud or angry, but they carried weight because they came from deep experience and honest intention. The audience listened as if hearing a story, one that painted him as a true partner to the families he served. When he finished, the host thanked him for the detailed answer. She turned to Marcus, inviting his thoughts. Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. He seemed unsure how to respond. The air felt electric. Ibrahim sat with perfect calm, eyes steady and respectful. Behind the scenes, some crew members let out small sighs of relief and admiration. They had seen many heated debates, but rarely had they watched someone meet aggression with complete calm and clarity. In the control room, a director whispered to an assistant that Ibrahim's performance was gold. Back on set, Marcus finally cleared his throat. He offered a brief, grudging nod to Ibrahim's honesty. The host smiled and moved on to the next topic, but the mood had shifted. Ibrahim had shown that respect and careful facts could answer even the sharpest challenge. As the segment closed, Ibrahim thanked the host and Marcus for the chance to speak. He gathered his folder and stood. The audience applauded, some people rising to their feet. Ibrahim nodded to the crowd, then to the host, and walked off the set as he left through the studio doors. Ibrahim felt a mix of relief and quiet triumph. He had stayed true to himself. He had shown what he believed in, and he had faced harsh words without losing respect. A small group of supporters waiting in the hall clapped and offered congratulations. Ibrahim smiled and shook hands, knowing that this was just the beginning of a larger conversation. The bright studio lights hummed softly as the cameras rolled for the second segment of the live interview. Ibrahim Traore sat upright at the sleek glass table, feeling a steady warmth in his chest. He had expected some tough questions when he agreed to appear on this high-profile show, but the sharp edge in Marcus Flint's tone surprised him. Standing just off camera, the production crew exchanged looks. Some tapped their pens, others tightened their lips. Even the host, usually confident and smooth, glanced at Marcus with a hint of concern. Marcus leaned forward, elbows on the table, his eyes narrowing. The host introduced the next question with a polite gesture toward Marcus, giving him permission. The journalist did not hesitate. "Mr. Traore," he said, voice low and mocking, "you spoke about your water project like it was a fairy tale. But let's be honest, do you really think you can change centuries of neglect with a few wells? Isn't it a waste of time and money?" Ibrahim held the corner of his folder with one hand. He looked at Marcus with calm respect. He knew this moment would be watched by thousands at home. He remembered the faces of villagers who still waited for water, the dry lips of children at midday, and the thankful tears of mothers when the first flow of water ran clear. He let all that fill him with quiet purpose. He exhaled softly and answered, "I do not believe in fairy tales, but I believe in planning and effort. Each well is not just a hole in the ground. It is a promise that people will not have to walk miles for water. It is a promise that children can go to school instead of carrying heavy jars. It is a promise that families can grow gardens." He paused, letting his words settle. "We have built 30 wells in the last year. We plan 30 more this year. That is not a tale, that is work." Marcus's lips curled as if he tasted something bitter. He turned in his chair, tapping his pen against the table. 30 wells, he repeated. "But what about the people who still suffer? You said 30 wells in a year, but there are hundreds of villages without water. You cover a tiny fraction of the need. Some would say, you are just picking easy places to make your numbers look good." A hush fell in the studio. The host leaned forward, hands folded, waiting. Ibrahim's supporters in the green room held their breath. Ibrahim placed both hands on the table. He felt the cool glass under his palms, reminding him to stay grounded. He imagined each well he had helped build, each buoyant shout of a child filling a bucket. He imagined the plants growing near the new water taps, the relief in weary eyes. He thought of the donors who had trusted him, the engineers who had sketched each diagram, the volunteers who had carried material across rough land. He spoke in a clear voice. I understand that my work is small compared to the need, but every tall tree begins as a seedling. We cannot plant all the trees at once. He smiled gently. We start where people ask us first. We learn from each project. We train local teams to keep the wells working. Share what we learn so others can build too. We do not claim to solve the whole problem alone, but we offer a model that can grow. Marcus frowned, but he nodded slowly as if weighing Ibrahim's words. He shifted his pen to his other hand and flipped through some papers. Ibrahim wondered what report Marcus held. The journalist looked at the papers, then back at Ibrahim. He raised an eyebrow. You say you train local teams, but how many of those teams stay active after you leave? Do you really invest in people, or do you just leave them with a well that breaks 6 months later? This question carried a sting. It reached beyond the numbers to trust and long-term care. Ibrahim saw the host's eyes widen. He thought of the young technician Amina, who had traveled with him on the last trip. She had learned to test water quality and tighten bolts. She had sent him a photo of her teaching to older men how to replace a broken pipe. She had told him that she felt proud to help her own village. Ibrahim nodded and spoke of Amina. Last month, I visited a well we built 18 months ago. It still runs strong because people there care for it. I met Amina again. She said she formed a maintenance team of 5 villagers. They check the well every week and collect a small fee to buy spare parts. They invited me to see the ledger they keep. Everything is recorded. The well has served nearly 1,000 people. They use lessons we taught them to fix any issue. Paused. That is how we build lasting change. The studio camera lingered on Marcus, whose pen hovered above the table. The journalist inhaled softly, searching for his next question. The air felt electric, as if the bright lights themselves leaned in. Ibrahim sat forward, ready. He knew Marcus would press again because the journalist's role was to challenge. But he felt confident in his facts, in his care for the people who depended on him. Marcus's lips tightened. He tapped a finger on the table once, twice. Then he leaned back, arms folded. You speak of one village, one team. But what about transparency? Who checks that your reports and ledgers are honest? How do donors know they can trust you with money? His voice carried skepticism, a test of Ibrahim's integrity. Ibrahim thought for a moment. He recalled the auditors who had traveled from the city to inspect his project. He remembered the meeting where each number was confirmed, each receipt cross-checked. He remembered the quiet pride when the auditors praised the clarity of his records. He also remembered the villagers who invited the auditors into their homes and showed them the water container they carried every day. He answered with steady respect. We invite independent auditors each year. They inspect every receipt and every well site. We share their full report on our website, so anyone can see our records. We also hold town meetings in the villages. Local leaders and villagers review our work. They can ask any question. They sign the minutes of each meeting. All these documents are available to donors. He placed his hands palm up on the table. Our work is open to all who wish to see it. For a moment, Marcus remained silent. The host glanced at him with a slight smile. Ibrahim returned the host's smile, a quiet thank you. The studio audience seemed to lean forward in unison, drawn into the story of effort and honesty. Even the floor crew paused their routine, listening as if the next words might change the world. The host's voice broke the silence. It sounds like you have built a solid foundation. Do you plan to grow these efforts in the coming years? She spoke with genuine interest, as though she too believed in the work beyond the studio. Before Ibrahim could reply, Marcus shot up a final challenge. Forgive me for pressing so hard, but I have to ask what motivates you. Is it faith, duty, or perhaps personal fame? People want to know whose interests you serve. His gaze was direct, unwavering. Ibrahim met his eyes. He understood that question well, because he had asked himself the same. He thought of his mother teaching him kindness, of the village elders speaking of responsibility, of the faces of people who had no one else to help them. He remembered the ache in his heart when a child asked why help came so late, answered, with simple honesty, I grew up knowing that help can be delayed for too long. I learned that people deserve respect and care. I do this because I cannot stand by when water dries up lives. I do not seek fame. I seek a world where no one thirsts. He spoke softly, but each word carried weight. If my name becomes known, it is only a sign that our story reached people, that they care to. The moment stretched. The host held her breath. The studio seemed to hold its breath. Then the audience broke into warm applause. The cameras panned across the seats, capturing faces bright with hope. Marcus sat back, his expression unreadable. Ibrahim let the applause wash over him quietly. As the segment ended, the host thanked Ibrahim for sharing his vision and truths. She turned to Marcus, who offered a brief nod. The lights dimmed slightly in the studio, signaling a short break before the next segment. Ibrahim gathered his folder, folding it carefully, as if each page held a promise. He stood, bowed his head to the host and Marcus, and walked toward the side door. Behind the scenes, a small team of staff members hurried to greet him. They whispered congratulations, handing him bottles of water and cold towels. Ibrahim smiled and nodded, thanking them. He felt relief and pride, knowing he had faced the journalist's challenges with calm facts and respect. He knew the real work continued, beyond bright lights and cameras, where every drop of water still mattered. He stepped through the door, leaving the studio behind, but carrying forward the hope he had spoken of. The studio lights shone brightly on Ibrahim Traore as he sat poised before the cameras. He felt a steady calm in his chest, as though the air itself carried the weight of every journey he had taken. Across the table, Marcus Flint leaned forward, his voice low and sharp. "Mr. Traore," he said, "you claim to know these villages, but have you ever lived their life? Do you understand their struggles? Or are you just another outsider speaking from a comfortable chair?" Ibrahim looked at Marcus without anger. He let Marcus's question hang in the air for a moment, giving it space. Then he spoke, his voice steady and calm. "I have lived among them," he said quietly. "I have walked their dusty roads when the sun was high and the air heavy. I have shared a single cup of water with families at dusk, hoping it would last for the next day." He paused, wishing the listeners could see the faces of the people he served. "I remember a woman named Awa. She carried a heavy clay pot on her head for miles. Her feet were cracked and tired. I watched her fill that pot one early morning when the well we built first gave water. Her eyes shone with gratitude. She told me, now I can plant seeds to feed my children." He permitted himself a small smile at the memory. "I know their life because I have walked with them." The studio fell silent. The only sound was the soft hum of equipment. Marcus's eyes flicked to the host, as if seeking permission to interrupt. She held up a hand, gently telling him to wait. White Ibrahim continued, "I have slept under the same stars they see. I have sat by their fires and listened to their stories. I have learned that a single well can bring hope that spreads like ripples on water." He glanced around the room. "I am not an outsider speaking from comfort. I am a friend who walked those roads beside them." Marcus pressed his pen against his notepad, trying to find a retort. His face tightened as he framed another question, but the host stepped in. "That is a moving story, Ibrahim. Thank you. Let's talk about how you handle setbacks." She paused, turning to Marcus. "Marcus, do you want to follow up on that?" Marcus opened his mouth but seemed reluctant. Finally, he nodded. "Yes," he said, voice less certain than before. "Setbacks. You build a well, and it fails. Bait pipes burst, pumps break. Who pays for the repairs? Do you return every time? Or do you move on to the next village, leaving them with empty promises?" Ibrahim leaned forward, hands resting on the table. He spoke with quiet confidence. "You prepare for every possibility, and we build a well. We train a local maintenance team. We leave spare parts in a small locked box at the site. We match each pump with a simple manual that anyone can read or translate. We show local volunteers how to tighten bolts, how to clean filters, how to test water quality. But we also schedule follow-up visits. Last year, we went back to every site 3 times. We replaced parts when needed, We taught new volunteers who joined. He lifted his eyes to meet Marcus's. We do not move on until we know the well still runs. The host nodded appreciatively. The cameras panned across her face, catching a spark of interest. Behind her, the production crew scribbled notes. Marcus looked at Ibrahim as if seeing him for the first time. He narrowed his eyes, then looked away, deep in thought. The air felt tense, but in a different way now. It was not anger, but a silent acknowledgement of Ibrahim's careful planning. Marcus cleared his throat. You speak of planning and training, but what about emergencies? In the dry season, when water is scarce, people queue up at the well. Tensions can grow. How do you keep the peace? The question hung heavy, touching on social dynamics and human emotions. Ibrahim knew this issue well. He recalled the long lines at the well last summer, the anxious faces of mothers with infants strapped to their backs, impatient children tapping their feet. He answered with a calm smile. We hold community meetings before any project begins. We explain how the well will work, how long each person's turn should be, and how to help neighbors who cannot carry heavy buckets. We involve local leaders to set simple rules. In one village, we used a colored stick system. When a family finished drawing water, they placed the stick in a box. The next family took a stick. No one could draw more than one stick at a time. It worked. People respected it because they had helped design it. Paused. We also teach basic first aid and how to share water with animals in times of need. In drought, we distribute extra water rations fairly. He spoke with the compassion he felt for those who live through harsh seasons. We do not just build wells, we build trust. The host's eyes glowed with approval. She leaned forward and asked for one more detail. How do you measure success? Ibrahim placed a hand on his folder, then pulled out a small chart. He described simple indicators: number of wells functioning, number of people served, reduction in waterborne illnesses, increase in school attendance, and feedback from villagers. He told stories of children who no longer missed school, of gardens that bloomed, and of families who saved time for crafts or small businesses. He spoke of a village elder who said, "We are drinking hope." As he spoke, the camera zoomed, and on his face, his words painted pictures of real change. He did not use jargon or complex data. He told human stories. He spoke of mothers, children, elders, and volunteers. The studio seemed to lean in, as if everyone wanted to hear the next sentence. Marcus watched him, silent, pen still. The host nodded, eyes shining. Even off camera, the crew sensed the shift. A director quietly told an assistant, "We've got something special here." When Ibrahim finished, a hush fell over the studio. Then the host spoke, voice warm. "Thank you, Ibrahim. Your work shows us what real change can look like." She turned to Marcus. "Marcus, any final thoughts?" Marcus inhaled, as though gathering his scattered thoughts. He looked at Ibrahim with a new respect. Then he spoke, his tone softer. "I can see you have thought through every detail. I apologize if I doubted your work too sharply." His apology surprised everyone. Even the host paused, surprised. Ibrahim smiled gently. "Thank you, Marcus. I understand it is important to ask hard questions. It helps us to do better." He reached out his hand across the table. Marcus looked at the hand, then took it. A quiet moment of genuine connection passed between them. Behind the scenes, some crew members cheered softly. The audience broke into applause. The host thanked them both and announced a short break before the final segment. Ibrahim gathered his folder and stood. He bowed his head slightly to the host and Marcus, then walked toward the side door. The applause followed. Him, warm and sincere. Back in the green room, Ibrahim sat among his supporters. He offered him water and snacks. He thanked each one with a nod and a smile. Felt relief, but also energy. The calm determination he had shown on camera still burned inside him. He thought of the families waiting for news of their wells, the donors who trusted him, and the volunteers who worked beside him. He knew this interview was more than a show, was a chance to bring more help and hope to those who needed it most. As he prepared for the final part of the interview, Ibrahim thought of Awa, carrying her heavy pot. Of the village under the hot sun, and of every step he had taken on dusty roads, he felt their presence with him. He knew his voice had reached many people today. He knew the true work lay ahead, beyond the studio lights. But for this moment, he allowed himself to feel proud of the villages he served, proud of the trust they placed in him, and proud of the calm strength that had guided him through the toughest questions. The studio lights dimmed as Ibrahim Traore walked off the set and into the quiet hallway beyond. His heart still thrummed with the energy of the interview's final moments. A small cluster of crew members gathered at the door, offering congratulations. He bowed his head in thanks and pressed forward past them, eager to find a moment alone before the last segment. A short flight of stairs led up to a small lounge where guests waited between takes. Ibrahim stepped inside to find soft couches, a table of fruit and water bottles, and stacks of towels folded neatly on a side table. He sank into a chair and closed his eyes for a moment. Outside, muffled voices drifted through the walls as the show went to commercial break. The quiet felt good, like a cool breeze after a long walk in the sun. He reached for a bottle of water and felt the condensation cool his palm. With one hand, he lifted the bottle and took a slow sip. The clear liquid soothed his dry throat. His mind replayed the questions Marcus Flint had asked his challenge. Each sharp word, and the way he had answered with calm facts and honest stories. He thought of Awa's cracked feet, of the dusty roads, of the sound of water flowing for the first time. Ibrahim exhaled slowly. He knew this interview could change many things. People watching at home might now believe in his work. New donors might come forward. Local leaders might invite him to build more wells. And volunteers might join his team, eager to learn and help. He tapped his foot lightly on the floor as he imagined each possibility unfolding. A knock sounded on the lounge door. A production assistant poked her head in. "Mr. Traore, the host will see you in 2 minutes for the final segment," she said softly. She held a stack of cue cards and smiled. Ibrahim nodded and stood, smoothing his jacket. He tucked the folder under his arm and walked toward the door. Back on the set, the host greeted him with a warm smile. The cameras rolled again, and the red light blinked on. Ibrahim sat down, feeling the same calm purpose he had carried throughout the interview. This final part would focus on his vision for the future and how viewers could help. The host turned to him. "Ibrahim, thank you for sharing your story and your work. Before we close, tell us what you hope to see in the next 5 years." She spoke gently, as if inviting him to paint a picture of tomorrow. Ibrahim leaned forward, hands folded on the table. He spoke with quiet confidence. "In the next 5 years, I hope we can bring clean water to every village in our region," he said. His words were simple, but filled with hope. "I hope we can train hundreds of local volunteers so they can maintain wells and teach others. I hope children can grow up without fear of thirst, and mothers can spend time with their families instead of carrying heavy pots." He paused for a moment to let his vision sink in. The host nodded, encouraging him to continue. Ibrahim spoke of schools no longer closing for lack of water, of gardens thriving with fresh vegetables, and of families starting small businesses with water-powered tools. He told of health clinics that could work longer days because they had water for medicine and sanitation. As he spoke, the camera panned to the audience, where people sat in rapt attention. Some nodded, others scribbled notes. He could see the lights reflecting in viewers' eyes as the studio monitors flashed his vision across screens. He felt the weight of responsibility, but also the thrill of possibility. The host then asked a gentle question: "How can people watching at home help you reach these goals?" Ibrahim smiled and placed his folder on the table. He reached into an inside pocket and pulled out a small card with a website and contact information. He held it up so the camera could catch the details. "Anyone can visit our website," he said. "There, they can learn more about our projects, see photos and reports, and donate if they wish. We also welcome volunteers who want to join our trips. Even local people can learn our training methods and start their own projects. Helps, no matter how small." He spoke of how a single monthly gift could pay for spare parts to keep a well working, how a group of students could raise money by holding a walk-on, and how an engineer could offer remote guidance. He invited viewers to share their skills, networks, and ideas. He reminded them that lasting change comes from many people working together. The host thanked him and turned briefly to Marcus Flint, who sat beside her. Marcus nodded in agreement. His earlier skepticism replaced by respect. "I have to say," Marcus began, voice softer than before, "this is one of the most practical and transparent efforts I have seen. I'm sure many people watching will want to help," Ibrahim acknowledged. The compliment with a humble nod. He looked at Marcus and said, "Thank you, Marcus. Your questions help me show the details. That helps everyone understand what is real work." His words were honest and warm. The host smiled and leaned back slightly. "Mr. Traore, we wish you the best. Thank you for raising water and hope for so many." The cameras cut and the red light turned off. Applause filled the studio as the host stood and shook Ibrahim's hand. Crew members emerged from behind cameras to offer him final congratulations. He thanked each person and gathered his folder. Back in the green room after the interview, Ibrahim's team greeted him enthusiastically. Volunteers cheered, and the production assistant brought him fresh water and juice. They clapped him on the shoulders and spoke of how proud they were. Ibrahim smiled gratefully. One young volunteer, Amina, rushed forward. She had flown in from one of the villages they served. "I saw everything," she said, eyes bright. "I am so proud of you. Now people will know the truth about our work. They will join us." Ibrahim placed a hand on her shoulder. "Your team's work made this possible," he said softly. "You taught me more than any book. Thank you for all you do." Amina beamed. Other volunteers gathered around, sharing photos on phones of new wells, of families drawing water, of children playing near fresh ponds. The mood was celebratory, but grounded by the knowledge that the real work lay ahead. Ibrahim sat for a moment with his team, talking plans. They discussed how to follow up with new donors, how to schedule the next trips, and how to expand training. They marked calendars and set simple goals. Build 10 new wells in the next 6 months. Train 20 new volunteers. Update the website with fresh stories. And host a local fundraising dinner. As the team talked, Ibrahim listened thoughtfully. He thought of the bright studio lights and the hush that fell when he spoke. He thought of the host's warmth, of Marcus's final words of respect, and of the applause that followed him. He felt humbled by the platform he had been given. Later that evening, back at his small office, Ibrahim opened his laptop and checked the website traffic. The numbers were rising fast. He saw new messages from people offering help and from villagers asking for projects. He read emails from donors praising the interview and asking how to give. He felt a warm glow in his chest, the same glow he felt when a new well first flowed. He typed a quick message to his team, "Great work today. Let's plan for all the new support coming in. Our journey continues." He hit send and leaned back in his chair. The soft hum of his desk lamp filled the room. Outside, the night sky stretched wide and dark, dotted with stars. Ibrahim remembered the nights he spent in villages under that same sky. He imagined each star as a drop of hope, shining in the darkness. He smiled and turned off his lamp, ready to rest before tomorrow's work. He knew this interview was not the end, it was a beginning. Every well built, every life touched, and every step forward would matter. And as long as he carried the calm strength he showed that day, he would keep bringing water and hope to those who needed it most. The next morning, Ibrahim Traore woke up early. The sun had just begun to rise, painting the sky in soft orange and gold. His small room was quiet and the air was cool. He sat by the window with a notebook in his hand, thinking about the day before. The studio interview was still fresh in his mind, the questions, the lights, the audience, and the way his calm answers had left everyone silent. The applause, the respectful nod from Marcus Flint, and the smile from the host had all shown him that his voice had made an impact. Ibrahim looked at his phone. It had over 100 unread messages. He opened a few. There were kind words from viewers who had watched the interview. One man wrote, "Your words made me cry. Thank you for reminding us what real leadership looks like." A woman from another country said, "I want to help. I've never donated before, but today I will." Even a group of students wrote to say they were planning to raise money by organizing a school event. He smiled as he read. These were not just words, they were signs that people understood. They wanted to be part of something bigger than themselves. Most of all, they believed in the mission to bring clean water and dignity to the forgotten corners of the world. Later that day, Ibrahim met with his small team at their community office. The building was simpler, few rooms, 2 computers, and a whiteboard filled with plans. But it was a place full of energy. The team greeted him with smiles and updates. The website had received thousands of visits since the interview aired. Donations had started coming in from different parts of the country and even overseas. Amina stood by the whiteboard, marking the names of new villages that had sent requests for help. 3 new villages have asked for wells, she said, and to more want training programs. We'll need to plan the next field visit soon. Ibrahim nodded. Let's focus on those 3 villages first. We'll assess the land, check the water tables, and talk to the elders. Can't promise everything at once, but we can start with the ones in greatest need. Another volunteer, Joseph, looked up from his laptop. And we'll need to thank the donors. Maybe a video message from you, Ibrahim? Ibrahim smiled. Of course, let's do it today. They set up a small camera in one of the office rooms. A map of their project area was placed behind him. Ibrahim sat on a stool and looked straight into the lens. He spoke from the heart. Thank you to every person who watched our story. Thank you to those who believed in us and decided to help. Your support is not just money, it is hope. Hope for a mother who will no longer walk 5 kilometers for water. Hope for a child who will go to school with a full belly and clean hands. Hope for elders who can sit in peace knowing their community is growing stronger. We will build wells. Together, we will train leaders. Together, we will bring light into dark places. Thank you for joining us. They finished filming in 1 take. No edits were needed. His words were honest and true. Over the next few weeks, things moved fast. With the new support, the team was able to buy more tools and equipment. They hired a local hydrologist to check the best spots for digging. Ibrahim personally visited the 3 new villages. He met with elders, spoke to women, and listened to their stories. One village was nestled in a dry valley where people had been using river water full of bacteria. Another was in a rocky area where women had to climb down steep paths to reach the only working well. The 3rd village had no water source at all. People walked to another village every day just to fill small cans. In each place, Ibrahim listened carefully. He promised nothing he couldn't deliver. But he offered his full commitment to do his best. Back at the office, Amina and Joseph worked on updates for donors. They added pictures of the villages, interviews with the families, and even short videos of children waving and saying thank you. They showed each step, surveying the land, digging, placing pipes, and installing the pumps. Slowly but surely, the wells were completed. The day the first of the 3 wells started flowing, Ibrahim was there. The sun was high, and the villagers had gathered around. Children laughed, and elders held hands as the water poured out, clean and clear. A woman stepped forward and said, "We have waited many years for this. Now our children will not suffer." Like we did. Ibrahim looked around and felt his eyes water. It was not just a well lit. It was a moment of dignity, of justice, and of peace. That evening, he sat on a small rock under a tree, watching the sun set behind the hills. Birds flew low, and children played nearby. The sound of water still echoed. In the distance, he opened his notebook and began to write down lessons from the past few weeks. Lesson 1. Respect the people you serve. They are your teachers. Lesson 2. Never promise more than you can deliver, but always deliver more than they expect. Lesson 3. Listen more than you speak. Lesson 4. Change doesn't come all at once. It comes one well at a time. Back in the city, the television studio aired a short follow-up clip, showed highlights from Ibrahim's interview, followed by updates on his projects. Marcus Flint even appeared for a short comment. Sometimes he said we meet people who change how we see the world. Ibrahim Traore reminded us that true leadership is quiet, steady, and honest. I was wrong to doubt him. He's doing something real, and I respect that. That clip was shared widely on social media. More people joined the cause. Few engineers offered their time. One company sent tools. A university offered scholarships to 2 volunteers from Ibrahim's team. Hope was spreading, not just through wells, but through knowledge, respect, and unity. Months later, at a conference for young community leaders, Ibrahim was invited to speak. The room was filled with students, activists, and local leaders. He walked to the podium with his usual quiet confidence. He did not wear a fancy suit. He wore the same neat jacket he had worn in the studio. It was clean but simple, just like his mission. He looked at the crowd and said, "You don't need to be famous to make change. You don't need to be rich. You just need to care deeply and work daily. Let people laugh at your small beginnings. Just keep building, brick by brick, well by well." The audience stood and applauded. Many had tears in their eyes. A few came up to him later and said, "I want to start something like this in my village. Will you help me?" Ibrahim shook their hands and said, "Yes, I will help you. And you will help someone else." That is how we change the world. Back in his hometown where it all began, people now called him the man who brought the water. But Ibrahim always corrected them gently. It's not just me, it's us. All of us, together. And as he continued his work, one well at a time, one village at a time, his story became more than just a moment on TV. It became a movement. Led by one calm man with a clear voice and a heart full of purpose,